everyone, my name is Jonah. Welcome to another OSKI review. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Lionel Fastrack Grade Crossing with flashers. This has of course been a very popular product made by Lionel for your track, and I could definitely tell why this was such a popular thing about my many train modelers, and I can definitely tell you guys why this is such a great product made by Lionel. Now in this video, I'm going to give you guys a closer look and show you guys the details that that Lionel has done for this grade crossing, and then after that I'm going to show you guys how it functions, and then basically have a train running through it and show you guys how it works. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into the review. Now before we get further into the review, I want to go ahead and show you guys the box that you will get when you get the Fastrack Grade Crossing. So for the box, of course, you have the very well-known orange on the box. You have the Lionel logo, and also if you're interested in getting this is the model number, which is 6-12052, and then of course it says Fastrack Grade Crossing with flashers. Of course, it has the picture of the product, and it has like the Fastrack on the box itself, which is pretty cool. Now on the side, you have the same thing. And this side you have the same thing as well. This side you have the same, and this side you have the same. Now on the back you have the information about it. So basically the features that come with it, as you have 2 flashing signals and bell. Includes 10-inch track sections and 6 1/4 inches. Includes a wide road section, and includes 2 5-inch isolated sections for activation. And then when you open the box up, since I already do have it set up, so it is already in the box, but this is what the box would look like. So the road and the track, the main road and track, would be sitting on top of here, and then under this would be the isolated track, and then this spot and this spot would be the grade crossings, and they're nicely individually wrapped to make sure that they are nice and secure and will not get damaged during shipping. Now, since I of course do have this already set up, I will not be able to show you guys the bottom, but I will be able to show you guys everything on top and show you guys everything that makes this thing function on the top. So I want to go ahead and show you guys the manual that comes with this, just to show you, give you guys an inference of what to expect when I start talking about it further into the review. So in the beginning of the manual, it says, "Congratulations on your purchase of the Lionel Fastrack Grade Crossing with flashers." Let me go ahead and turn things up a little bit so you can see a little bit more better. There you go. So congratulations on your purchase of the Lionel Fastrack Grade Crossing with flashers. This track section features 2 operating flashes and realistic bell sounds. When your train rolls across the broken outside rails on the insulated track sections, the lights begin to flash and the sounds are activated. And this is your inventory of parts: grade crossing, 2 flasher signals, 2 signal bases, 2 isolated track sections, owner's manual, which is already what you're looking at, and service center list. And then the table of contents, and there you go. Now this is what is going to be pretty it could be pretty it's kind of a lot to sink in when you're buying this product. So it says, like, choose a location in your layout for the grade crossing. When you assemble the track sections, be sure that the broken rails and the isolated track sections are the same side, inside the track loop or outside the track loop. Be sure that the switch on the grade crossing is located on the same size as the brakes in the isolated track sections, refer to figure 1. And then this is what the setup should be. So you will have the main track, and then you'll have 5-inch tracks on both sides, which will be the activation tracks. And this is kind of just showing you guys how to joint the track sections. And then this is how you install the flashers. You just basically simply just plug them into the bases, and there you have it. Then of course this talks about the how to operate it. So when the track is powered up and a train crosses over a break in the isolated track sections, the grade crossing will operate. Use the bell on and off switch to control the operation of the bell sounds, and the switch is illustrated in figure 4. When the switch is in the off position, the bell sounds will not operate when the train triggers the flashers. And then there is no notes, but you can basically write your own stuff down if you do want to remember all of this. And then there is some warranty information, and you can place your address, place of purchase, date of purchase, product number, product description, and that's pretty nice to have. So that's kind of what you kind of have to sink in. It's kind of complicated to understand, but once you actually get this figured out and you put this together, it will be pretty simple to remember. Alright, so to start things off, we're going to actually take a look at the flashers first, and then after that we're going to take a look at the road, or the rest of the track. Alright, so here's a look at one of the flashers that comes with the grade crossing. Now I'm going to carefully take this off. This is a little difficult to take off. If I can take this off, it is a little tough to take this off. Oh shoot. I guess I can't. I don't want to break it, and I don't want to make it stop functioning. Oh, I think I know how to fix this. Hold on one second. It's a little tough to figure out when you're taking this out. There you go. Okay, so basically we're gonna start off, or look at the bottom first. So this is how you basically plug in your grade crossing, and it kind of looks kind of funny to how this actually works. So basically, you have this little piece. Be careful with this because I don't want to break it. So the base looks like, okay, move this down a little bit. Okay, there you go. So when you get this crossing, now base will look like this, and then there will be a little baggie that will have this little piece. Now there's two of these pieces, and you basically just simply plug them in like that, and then you have your grade crossings like that. Now what's kind of funny about the grade crossings is that there's the way to power up the grade crossing is basically like an auxiliary jack, and that basically powers up the grade crossing, which is kind of funny when you first look at it at a first glance, but that's actually how it functions, and it's kind of a funny design, but it's actually kind of smart as well. So when we look at the flashers, I'm going to go ahead and start off with the top and then make our way to the bottom. Alright, so here's a look at the top of the crossing. On the top of the crossing, you may be wondering what this little piece is, because it definitely looks something that you wouldn't usually see on a crossing. But you know what? It actually is something you would usually see on a crossing, but you probably wouldn't notice it because it does blend in with the rest of the crossing. So you may be wondering, what exactly is that, if you're not too familiar of what exactly that is. So this is actually the bell for the crossing. This is actually super cool that Lionel even added that in, because usually crossings wouldn't have that type of design on there, and for Lionel to add that design, or add that little piece onto there, is actually pretty awesome. And I definitely do really like that design, because it is very prototypical to have that on there, and for Lionel to do something like do the unexpected, like I know there's like the most littlest thing on the flashers, but when you actually like know a lot about grade crossings and stuff, and you see that type of thing for a model, for a model railroad, it's definitely something that's super cool to actually see. So for Lionel to add that is super cool. Now, you may be wondering, how is that a bell? Well, it's now time for a little history lesson. So, I might add in a little picture here to show you guys exactly what this is supposed to represent. So, of course, with the old crossings, of course, there would be the mechanical bells on top of the crossings. And, of course, everyone loves the mechanical bells. But then as time went on and things started to get modernized, and companies have found more modernizing technology to basically represent the same exact thing, like a mechanical bell. And of course, the mechanical bell consisted of using electricity, and using these special types of using this type of old school technology uh, that would ring a mechanical bell. But then, as time went on and things got more modernized, as time went on, uh, companies, of course, have found a better solution than using the mechanical bells, because, of course, the mechanical bells, of course, would need maintenance here and there, because if you're someone that does own a mechanical bell from a crossing, you can, of course, tell that there is quite a bit of maintenance stuff on the mechanical bell. So, as time went on, companies found a solution to basically do the same exact thing that a mechanical bell would do, but in a much simpler and more convenient thing to use, and will not need as much maintenance. And that's when they created an electric version of the crossing bell, and that is, of course, called an e-bell, like E-bell. So an e-bell, which is abbreviating electric bell, basically is like a speaker. Well, I know exactly what this is modeled after. I don't remember the exact name of the crossing bell, but I do know what it looks like in real life. So there's like a loudspeaker up here, it looks like a mini megaphone, and then there's like a cone shaped object on the bottom, which is like a deflector, and that's supposed to deflect the sound so everyone can hear it. And so it's like a lot more like efficient than possibly what a mechanical bell would do. So for Lionel to add in like a modernized electric bell and not like a mechanical bell is actually kind of cool, because usually you would expect like companies like Lionel or MTH or other companies would add like a mechanical bell or something like that. Well, Lionel decided to go the modern way and add an e-bell and not a mechanical bell. But of course, you can of course get crossings with the mechanical bells and stuff. But since this is like, of course, an electric, of course, this is an electric accessory. Why not make it modern by using an electric bell on top of it? Now, both flashers do have the single speaker on top, and it is prototypical for some crossings to actually have both the e-bells on one side, or both sides. But there's also crossings where the speaker is only on one side, or the bell is only on one side, and the other side doesn't have it, because you could be able to hear it on one side. You don't need a secondary one. But there are also like the overhang ones, like the overhang. There, of course, are the overhang crossings where, and they would even have these like sitting on the top of it. And if you do look closely on the overhang crossings, you will most likely be able to find one of those, probably sitting on top or somewhere around the crossing. You'll probably be able to find one of those electronic bells. But also, they could most likely also could possibly rarely see a mechanical bell still in operation and probably being preserved. So there's definitely quite a bit of different types of crossing bells, and if you're actually hearing about this for the first time, well, that's kind of something I do know about, and I've actually learned about after watching um, learned about over time by like watching some videos about crossings and stuff like that. Because when I, of course, when I just go, when I'm like on a normal road trip or something to go somewhere, and I just come across just railroad crossings, it just, of course, reminds you of trains, and I just really like crossings. And of course, crossings are like my favorite spot to catch trains and stuff, because like, who doesn't like going to a crossing and catching a train there? Because I think that's just like the best spot to get it. and of course crossings are made for safety and to let you know and not cause crashes or fatal injuries by and so of course it's definitely a lot that can continue to go on and on about crossings, but I don't want to waste all you guys' time. But that's basically some of the things I kind of wanted to talk about. And so below the e-bill, you have the well-known railroad crossing sign, and speaking of that, I do have a sign in my layout that is exactly that, which is right there. Now below the railroad crossing sign, you have two very nicely decorated flashers. This is very nicely made by Lionel, and I did forget to mention this, but these are actually made out of metal, and of course, Lionel kind of does have to make this out of metal because since there's such little pieces and little poles like this, you kind of have to make it metal because if they were like made out of plastic or something, of course they would not be durable at all and pretty easy to break. But for these to be made out of metal, it does make it a little bit more durable. But it still is, of course, better to have it in a place where it will not get broken or easy access to little kids and would end up breaking this. So I would of course recommend, of course, keeping this in a good place where it will not be broken. But Lionel did do a very good job making this all out of metal and making sure that this is pretty durable, and also for it to be made out of metal is also prototypical because of course crossings are made out of metal, and for it to also be made out of metal also kind of makes it look a lot more better because it does of course give it like that nice silver paint that we all know railroad crossings have. Now, of course, we do have the black paint around the middle of the flashers. That's of course what all crossings do have, and I also really do love the little piping. I do really like the piping because that is what the crossings do look like in real life. So I really do like that design as well. And then after that, you just see the pole continue to the bottom of the base. Now these lights are red and they are LEDs, so they will last a very long time because of course LEDs are much more efficient than fluorescent light bulbs. And I am not 100% sure if Lionel did make these with fluorescent lights, but if they did, I would, of course, that would be a lot more maintenance to take care of because fluorescent lighting does not last as long as fluorescent lights. No, excuse me. Fluorescent lights do not last as long as LEDs, so it is a good choice by Lionel. And of course, modernized railroad crossings do have LED lights as well, so it is also prototypical to have LED lights as well. So there you go. Now, of course, when this is powered up, this does, of course, do the normal flashing as usual by going from one light to another. It continues to do the same pattern over and over again. Now, if you may have noticed, there is the wires connecting from the back of the pole to the wires. Now, that's not exactly prototypical, but it's not really a thing I would get picky about because it's, of course, you can't really fit wires that are, I mean, even though these are pretty thin wires, you probably most likely can't even put wires even through that because that's just way too small to even fit a wire like that, and it would even make this piece a lot more fragile. So it was a pretty smart call by Lionel just to let the wires just stick out like that, because it would make the crossing a lot more fragile and easier to break, when Lionel just made the simple route just to make it a lot more easier to take care of, and be a lot more stronger and a lot more difficult to break. Now the other flasher is exactly the same as the one we just took a look at, but I do want to just show you guys the back, just show you guys what the back does look like. So as you can tell, everything looks basically everything looks the same, but as you can tell, this is where the wires go up to. So after the crossing gets plugged into the little base, the wires go up here, and then the wires come out from the back, and they go straight into another hole in the back of one of the lights, and that's basically how it functions. Of course, one of the wires is colored red, and the other one is colored black, because that's of course positive and negative. All right, now here's a look at the grade crossing part. No, let's take a look. Yeah, let's take a look at the grade crossing itself. So in the middle of the track, as you can tell, you have the nice. This is all made out of plastic, but you have like the nice wood design in the middle of the track, and as you can tell, it's in between each piece of the rail. And then, as you can tell, I'm gonna have to move this back a little bit. Okay, there you go. And then for the road, you have the gray, and we have like the gray concrete color. And then on the sides, you kind of have like a I believe this kind of is like supposed to be like the dirt, kind of like dirt on the side of the concrete road. And then on the both ends, like where the bases are for the crossings, and the other side where there is no crossing, there is the green paint, so of course represent as grass. Now I hope you guys will know that this is actually just a normal 10-inch track, 10-inch Fastrack made by Lionel, but of course with all the grade crossing stuff added on, and of course the base is a lot more different. Now I also want to take the time to actually show you guys the switch that was also mentioned in the manual, and the switch is right there. It's pretty nicely hidden, and you can't really notice that too well, and especially from a naked eye, or just from a glimpse at it, you probably wouldn't really see it. So it was a nice job by Lionel just to hide it in a space that's not very recognizable or noticeable at a first glimpse. Now, of course, like I said in the manual, this switch has the function of turning on the bell, or turning on and off the bell. So, of course, you can have the flashers flashing at all times, but you can actually have the flashers on while the bell is off, so you can just have the flashers operating as they should. But if you do, like to have the bell sound, you can simply just flip the switch, and it would function as normal. Alright, so now it's time to talk about the 5-inch tracks that come with the crossing. So for this crossing in order to operate, now when you get this crossing out of the box, the grade crossing is the first thing that comes out of the box. But then under the road, you have what it looks like a normal 10-inch track, but actually it's two pieces. It's actually two halves of a 10-inch track, which is 5-inch track. Now this is not ordinary 5-inch track made by Lionel. This actually has a special role in this crossing working, because if you were to have this crossing running without these pieces, the crossing would just constantly ring at all times with the track powers on, and the only time it would shut off is with the track power shut off. So what these tracks are, or what the role on this track is to allow you to have the crossings on, or is to have the crossings only turn on or only activate when the train passes through it, and not constantly be on even when the train is nowhere near close the crossings, and the crossings shouldn't be lining up, of course, when there's no train. So what Lionel did, and this is a pretty smart idea made by Lionel, so this is kind of complicated to talk about, but it is how it functions. So there is a brake track, and if we did go back to the video, or if we did look early in the video of the manual, and I'll actually pull out the manual right now so it can be a little bit easier to explain. So if you look at the manual right here, and I do apologize for the focus, there you go. So as you can tell, you have the brake, and the brake is right here. And both tracks have that brake part in the track, so they're both exactly the same. So they have to be on the same exact side of the track. Now on the bottom of the road, there's a metal box which contains all the controls for the crossing to work as function, like the sound and the crossing doing the flashing. Now on that metal plate it says isolated side, and that's telling you that there's the isolated part of the track, which is this track over here. This track is of course isolated because it does not have the brake point. Now you may be wondering, why is there a brake point in this rail but not on this point? It's because this rail has is the main part, or this is actually the part that actually activates the crossing when the train goes over it. So for example, when the train goes over here, and the crossing does not light up before this brake, but when the train goes over the brake, this causes the crossing to go off. But then when the train goes over the second brake, that will shut off the crossing. So this brake is actually this is actually the place that the train must go over in order to activate the crossing. So it is kind of complicated to talk about, but that's actually how this crossing works. If the crossing does not have this track, it will just constantly be on and on and on. Now, just to note that this will only leave the crossing off. Now, this doesn't mean that this track will cut off all the power on the track. This will only cut off the power. I believe that this is only supposed to cut off the power for the where the crossing is, and then once the train goes over it, the power is on and the crossings are on. But then once the train goes over it, the power gets shut off where the crossing is, and everywhere else where the power is still on. So do not worry about these track shutting off all the power in the track. It will only shut off the power where the crossing is and nowhere else. That is the main purpose of this track, is to allow power to go through the track but also leave the crossings off. And this is why the purpose of this brake track is to make sure that the crossing stays off when the train is nowhere nearby. But then when the train is on top of the brake point, the crossings will be on. But then once the train is done passing through, the crossings will be off. And then this isolated track allows the track power to stay on throughout the rest of the track, or through the rest of your layout, but the crossing itself. So it is pretty complicated to talk about, but hopefully you can understand what I'm trying to talk about. I know it's a mouthful, and I know it's pretty complicated to understand, but I'm not the one that created this. It was Lionel that created this, so please don't get all mad at me because I didn't explain this well. I'm just explaining this, what the manual says. So there you have it. Now here's a look at the second half of the track. So this is the other 5-inch track. It looks exactly the same as the other one. Now, like I said, the manual said that the brake point has to stay on the same exact side as the other track's brake brake point. So no matter what direction your train is going, whenever your train goes over this second rail, the crossing will activate. And when the train goes over the second broken rail, that's when the crossing shuts off. So it is pretty complicated to talk about, but I hope you guys are able to understand that So it is pretty complicated to talk about, but I hope you guys are able to understand this. Alright, so it's now time to test this out, and I will show you guys how this actually works. So I just turned on my transformer, and I'm now going to add power to the track. Now there is a little LED over here for one of another's Lionel's track, which is the Power Expand Play track. So you will see a little LED light up in there, and that will let you know that the track power is on. So let me go ahead and add power. So you can see that the light is on over there, and you can see that the crossings are not operational at the time. And I'm going to go ahead and flip on the switch so you can hear the bell sound that this does create. So as you can tell, I have power to the track, but the crossings are off. So I'm going to go ahead, did not mean to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and pull a car, just 4 passenger cars over the track, and just reenact the train going by. So basically, you can see the cars going over. And so if you look right here, I'm going to move this out of the way, I did not mean to do that. So if you look at the brake point right here, if you keep an eye on that, so look at this part. So as soon as the wheel goes over this brake point, the crossings will activate. So here you go. So they're activated right now. That's the bell noise. It's going over the track. It's going over the second activation rail. As you can see, it's staying on while the train is going through. And then once the train goes over that, it stays on. And so you go over to the second activation track, and then you see it go over this track, and it turns off on its own. And even when it goes, I'm going to go ahead and just use one car, and I'm going to uncouple one of the cars. So no matter what way it's going, it will always activate. So let's do this again. So look at this point right here. As soon as this wheel goes over here, it will start right back up again. So lights up again, and it stays on even though it went over that track. And then once it goes over the second activation track, it shuts off. So it's a very, very, very well made product by Lionel that just shows you how it actually works. And it's actually pretty well made by Lionel. It is complicated to talk about, but it is actually pretty cool to show how it actually functions. So that is how the crossing functions, and it's actually pretty cool of how it actually operates. So both of the tracks have a role. So no matter what direction your train is going, it will always activate by one of the rails, and then once the train goes by the second activation rail, the crossing will shut off until the next train goes over it. So it is a complicated thing to talk about, or how it functions. But then once you actually see how it actually works, you'll actually understand it a lot more. So it is a pretty awesome product to get, and I definitely recommend getting it. Now, before we close things off, I want to go ahead and show you guys the function when you flip the switch to the other side. So I'm going to go ahead and power up the track once again. And as you can tell, the light is on over here. So I'm going to go ahead and flip the switch. So I'm going to go ahead and flip the switch to the left. And that's, of course, what we talked about earlier, that the switch turns off the bell noise. So go ahead and put the car over. And as you can tell, the crossings are activated, but the bell sound is no longer active. So you can have the crossings working and flashing while there is no bell sound. So if you do not prefer to have the crossing sounds, you can just have the crossings flashing with no sound. So it is pretty nice to have. And so as you can tell, when you leave the car on top of the track, it always stays on until the train goes over the second activation track, and there you go, it shuts off. So it's a very nice product to have. And once you actually figure out how this actually functions, it's actually pretty amazing to how Lionel has actually engineered this product and make it work very well. And so with that being said, that's going to conclude today's review on the Lionel Fastrack Grade Crossing with flashers. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. If you are looking to purchase this item, the retail price is right around $100. But if you possibly come across one of these at your local hobby store or come across it on a website, you could possibly get it on get it for a much cheaper deal. I went to my local chain store and the retail price was $100, but I was actually able to get this for only $90. I was able to get it a little bit of a discount and only get it for $90. So I did save $10 on it. So it is a very nice product to have, and I definitely recommend getting one of these. And it definitely looks amazing on the layout, and I'm very pleased to have this on here. Now, if you are interested in seeing this in action, I will be see this more in action. You will be seeing a lot more videos to come on the channel, and when I just do simple train running videos, this will most likely be the main area where I always have my trains running at. This is kind of like the main location where I show you my train running around the layout. So it is a very amazing product to have. I absolutely love it. I'm very pleased to have this on my layouts, and I definitely recommend getting one of these. So once that being said, thank you guys for joining me in today's review. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Once again, the retail price for one of these is right around $100, but I'm sure you could be able to get a little bit of a discount on it, like what I was able to get it. Like this was like $100, but I was able to get a discount on it for right around $90. So I did get $10 off it, which is still a pretty good deal. So once again, thank you guys for joining me in today's video, and I'll see you guys in the next video. See you guys next time.